Hiya, this is Niki Rowland for Hip Kit Club, and today I am making a layout using the April kits, and I also am only using the main kit. Actually, this is for this one just the main kit, so no embellishments or no embellishment kit, no colour kit, no Project Life kit for me, so just the main kit. My brief today was to incorporate a grid design. Okay, so I've been challenging myself lately to use more pattern paper backgrounds. I have recently put up some shelves in my craft room and put all my layouts on display, and it's just this big sea of white background layouts. So I thought I'd better change that, or should perhaps try to mix things up a little bit. So I thought I would, so I have challenged myself lately to use more pattern paper backgrounds. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So I'm using a purple background. It's a Chamel Sparkle City paper, and I have also got 2 sheets of that Horizon. Actually, I think it's just 1 sheet of that Horizon paper with all of the beautiful starburst on it. I've also got half of that sheet of the purple and pink half and blues. So I have cut that up into they're approximately 2-inch squares, and I've cut that all up, and I'm planning to layer them on top of each other. I've also got some Chamel patterns in there, and I've got some Dear Lizzie patterns in there too, and I'm just planning to assemble the whole background with these squares all over them, I thought I would cut more squares than needed and then create several squares that have several layers. So I really loved these tiles that were on one of the Paige Evans sheets, Horizon, and they are ideal obviously, so I thought I'd cut up some of those and put them in the middle of my squares. I was really determined to use that manufacturing strip there. Can you see it on my ruler on the left? So it's come off of one of the Chamel sheets, and it's a really lovely pattern. I really wanted to incorporate that into this layout somehow. I'm still not entirely sure where I'm going with this at this point. I'm not happy with the hole in the grid for the photo. Then I thought, well, maybe I should just have the grid on part of the layout rather than all of it. And then I thought about incorporating some white cardstock, and that makes me so happy. I do love a bit of white cardstock, just the separation from the patterns to the photo really. That was definitely the answer here. So even though I still have a pattern paper background, I'm afraid I just couldn't go completely cold turkey on the white and put in that strip there. So now I'm going through, I've roughly worked out my placement for my photo and my grid, and now I'm just going through trying to figure out what title I'm going to use. Now I want a long title, and this photo is a silly photo of just me and my girl, and we're just having fun playing on Snapchat filters, pulling silly faces. So I thought I would try to spell out the title, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. There we go, I've done it there. Instead of you watching me sort out the entire alphabet, it took forever actually. I have done that off camera. So you can see that I've sorted out oh goodness me, I can't speak today. I've sorted out my title, but there's no way it was going to fit on a horizontal piece of white cardstock, and those alphas really do need to go onto cardstock rather than patterns, because they're acetate and obviously you can see the pattern through them. So I am rearranging my layout so that I have a strip going vertically down the page instead of horizontally across it, and then that gives me a perfect place to put my title, which is huge. So you can just see I'm still kind of ombreing, so I've got pink at the top going into purple, going to light blue to dark blue, strips going across the layout in the grid, so I'm aiming for that kind of colour effect. And I still plan to have some layers. I've also distressed all of the edges of those squares as well, which you can probably just about see on the camera. I didn't make you watch me do that either because it was going to take too long too. Okay, so now I am just getting my title in place. I can't quite decide where my photo is going to go at this point. I quite like it where it is there, but I try a few different placements just because my title is fairly long and obviously quite bold, and the photo needed to go onto I needed the photo to kind of attach itself to the title a little bit, so it was so they were grouped elements, but it just didn't quite look perfect, because the title wanted central of the white card, and then the photo intruded on that. So I tried a few different placements, and it eventually settled on the same area that I started with, as you do. So there I am, just fiddling around with those alphas. The one of the S's, I didn't have enough S's in the right colours, so I pulled out 2 question marks and trimmed them and layered them on top of each other in order to make up an S. So that's a good little tip there if you're a few S's short. I have sewn those through with my sewing machine in order to get those acetate letters stuck in place. I think I've said in every video that I've used these so far that I have yet to find a good way of attaching acetate to a layout. Any glue seems to show through, tape shows through, so the best thing I can suggest, or that I do, is to stitch through. So literally I didn't even hold them in place when I didn't tack them in place. I didn't use tape at all before I used the sewing machine. So I spent ages arranging all of those layers, those letters even, and then I moved it to go onto my sewing machine. Of course they all moved, so there was a bit of faffing around sorting that out as well. So anyway, I've got my photo in place, I've got my title in place, and now I just want to add some extra embellishments to my fabulous squares. I do like a grid design. I think they're really easy on the eye and they look nice. I am just bringing in some tone-on-tone embellishments. So I've just pulled out literally everything in the right colour from the Paige Evans ephemera. We also have the Paige Evans chipboard sticker element stickers things, so I've pulled some bits off of there as well. However, a lot of them are multicoloured, and on this occasion I'm looking for things that are not so multicoloured. I'm looking for mostly tone-on-tone embellishments, so I need the embellishments to be kind of solid colours. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but I didn't want to have an overwhelming second colour in the wrong place, so a small amount of detail like a bit of greenery and some leaves is fine, but on the whole I tried to keep the embellishments as solid as possible. So you can see I'm just adding all of those bits in now and getting them stuck down. So those flowers at the bottom are pulled off of one of the layered tags. Here I come in with that manufacturing strip that I really wanted to incorporate somehow. It's dark, so therefore it's going to go at the bottom of my layout, and I kind of want to put journaling strips on there. I'm not sure how I'm going to write on my journaling strips being so dark, but I do figure out a way of changing that up later. So just literally going through and sticking all of my embellishments in place. I'm happy with how everything's looking, so I just literally need to stick everything down. I'm using foam pads to stick most of them down. I tend to stick the bottom edges of things down flat, like that suitcase I stuck down flat at the bottom, and then raise the top edges up on foam pads. This is so that if I want to layer anything at the bottom edge, I've got a flatter edge to stick to rather than a piece of ephemera on a different layer. That triangle that I'm trying to figure out where to put, I've put that in a number of different places and eventually settle on that one there under a chipboard stamp. Okay, so the moped's going on and the butterfly's going on, and then I have those that big flat pink flower that's going behind the photo. I've cut it in half so that I have the illusion of having two, and sticking my photo on. I'm not putting anything behind my photo. I like a mount or a paper layer, just because this layout is so busy already. I don't need to bring in any more patterns. So I'm adding a heart at the bottom of my photo, and you'll see that I put some of my squares over on the right hand side, and they are off of the page, so I had to trim all those off, and I'm doing the same with the ephemera too. So even though I end up cutting off a word and part of the heart, that's fine, because it kind of, I wanted it to have that look. So now what I'm doing is I'm figuring out this journaling at the bottom. So I have distressed the edges of those three tiny journaling strips, and I am also now going to put a little bit of white card on top of them. Before I get to that though, I have done some stitching, machine stitching on this layout, so I just wanted to add some details. I also wanted to make sure everything was going to stay in place, because embellishments and things have a habit of coming off. So what I've done is I've added a few straight stitches here and there. I've also added some zigzag stitching here and there as well, just so that it all fits in nicely. It does, say, 2 jobs. It keeps everything in place and also looks pretty. That's the main job, of course, looking pretty. I've just pulled all my white threads. They're just white. I've just done white thread today. I'm pulled all my threads through to the back of the layout, and I'm just sticking them all in place to make sure that none of them escape onto the other side and unravel. I'm sure they wouldn't. I think you can probably leave threads hanging and it won't be a problem, but I like things to look quite neat. I am just making sure all of those are pulled through to the back and nice and neat. So adding in a couple of those fabulous Chamel Sparkle City enamel dots. They are awesome. They are sparkly, they are brilliant. So just adding in a few of those. I love the purple ones, and bringing in a few of those there. I think now I've gone off to find a piece of white cardstock to sort out my journaling. Oh, hold on, here we go, a few more enamel dots actually before I move on. And to say, then I'm going to find a piece of white cardstock to go over those journaling strips. So literally I'm just cutting a really narrow piece, and I'm cutting 3 lengths of it, again same as what I've already got 3 lengths there. I'm distressing the edges too with my scissors, just because everything else on the layout is distressed, but I nearly cut myself, so be careful when you do this, because it's so tiny. I didn't have much room between the piece of paper I was holding and the scissors and my fingers. So yeah, be careful, death by journaling. Then I decided that the white cardstock wasn't working, it was too white, so I abandoned those pieces of journaling strips that I've made, and I pulled out some pattern paper, and I've done those instead. So I'm putting some pink layers over the top of my dark blue manufacturing strip layers as well, and I'm just handwriting in my journaling. I chose to use a black pen. Normally I use grey, but on this occasion, because I'm writing on a patterned paper, I have gone with a black pen so it shows up better. And that is me done. Call that done. So there is my very crazy bright finished grid layout using the main kit only for April. It's a gorgeous kit. I loved working with it, and it really proves you don't need all of the other kits as well. The main kit will suffice. Thank you so much for joining me. That was Niki Rowland for Hip Kit Club.